Joe Biden visited the ladies of The View on Wednesday, where they discussed his historic move to step out of the race. He found his crowd. This was his response.
And look, I never fully believed the assertions that somehow there was this overwhelming reluctance of my running again. I didn't sense that. And although the polling, as I said, Biden's polling was different, the fact of the matter is my polling was about, we're always within range of beating this guy. I stepped down because I started thinking about it. You know, it's hard to think of, I know you're only 30, but it's hard to think of, it's hard for me to even say how old I am. No, I'm serious. I don't know.
Why is that?
I give my word. It's like, holy God, that can't be right.
The president insisted he had remained confident all along in his ability to beat Trump. Co-host Whoopi Goldberg didn't mince words about how his decision to exit unfolded. Let's watch that.
I didn't like the way they did it. I'm going to just say it out loud because nobody says it out loud. I didn't like the way it was done publicly. I thought they could have done this in a different way because we didn't need to hear all the inner fighting. I didn't like it. I'm saying it to you. You were my ride or die. I was going wherever you were going, that's what I would do. So I just wanted to say that because I always felt you were going to probably do 4 years and then try to figure out where to go with Kamala. Then he just wouldn't go. He was like a bug. He just kept being there. He was like a bug right there. Zzz.
Biden also said that he had always thought of himself as a transitional president and that he is at peace with his decision.
So, I don't know what polls he was looking at. That vibes-based, I was always within striking distance, kind of suggesting that it wasn't that much different between him and Kamala Harris. I'm sorry, that's just not true.
Right.
That is factually incorrect. He was in striking distance in the sense that a massive polling error in Trump's favor would have meant he could possibly have won.
Right.
This is a very closely divided country. But by the end, over the course of 2024, his polling in the swing states had collapsed. He was behind by 3 points, 5 points, 8 points in many of these states, in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Arizona, Georgia, etc. He was looking to like he was going to lose them all. Kamala Harris has improved on that position. It's now very close in all those states. She's a little bit ahead in some of them. Now, you can argue that that's not going to be enough because the polling errors in the past have been in Democrats' favor, so she's not up by enough to maybe overcome that error. We don't know. It's going to be a close election. But there's no argument that her polling is better than his, and that his was getting to be on the I have a 20 to 30% chance of winning this election versus hers, I have a somewhere between 45% and 55% chance of winning the election. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that is right. There's no question at all that Kamala Harris has a better chance of winning this election than Joe Biden did.
Yeah.
And that's the problem when, I like Whoopi Goldberg and I think she's trying to be nice there, but to say she was ride or die for Biden, the problem was you were going to die, politically speaking, if you were a Democrat, right? There was no riding to victory going on there. It seemed almost certain that he was going to lose. The idea that a major political party sort of took leave of its senses and just jettisoned a sitting president for no reason, like, that's not true. We all saw what happened in that disastrous June debate with Trump. It put a very sharp point on the concerns that people had already had about Biden's cognitive abilities. That in turn left Democrats believing that they were doomed if Biden was going to be the nominee, and that's why there was the attempt to oust him. I do not share this criticism that sometimes comes from the kind of Trump right as well as ultra-Biden loyalists that this was some kind of coup. A party has the right to try to get the nominee that it wants, and I think it's fine to try to put pressure on someone. He could have resisted that pressure to the end if he'd wanted to do so.
He did resist it for that's her complaining about how she said, I don't like how it went down. Well, that's on him.
Right.
That's his doing. Right. He didn't go quietly or easily or immediately. The cardinal sin was deciding to run again for re-election in the first place. Once he had done that, we were set on this path because he was not going to make it to the end in terms of withholding from the American public how advanced his age-related decline was, or and maybe it had gotten much worse in just the last couple months of him remaining the candidate. I find that plausible, but it was also foreseeable given that he's the oldest person ever to seek office in this way, and there had already been signs as far back as the midterms. He could have retired, decided not to run again. A lot of people thought that that's what he was going to do. He never explicitly said he was going to be a one-term president, but he sort of let that idea exist out there, and then it was going to be handoff to Kamala Harris. Then he decided not to do that, and so we were forced in this. She could say it was ugly and embarrassing for him, and it was, but that's because he had to get. It had to get dragged into the public because he wouldn't go quietly.
Yeah, and I think as well, people, of course, always say it's about his age, and I'm sure I have said it on occasion. There are people who are that age who are very mentally sharp. The question was really, is he capable of serving another 4 years as president? Now, you could have made that argument in 2020, and obviously that argument was made successfully, and that's one of the reasons why he won. It became much more difficult to make that argument recently, especially in the wake of the debate. I will say this, though, if you were Joe Biden, I guess it's in some ways, even though a painful situation to be effectively ousted, it's kind of more pleasant to be sitting there having all these soft questions on The View than it is facing the possibility of defeat in a major election.
The View is the most friendly interview he could conceivably do on the planet Earth. This is the most pro-Biden, all of them pro-Biden, Biden-friendly. So it was the most favorable atmosphere he could have. And still, we played those clips. I just watched some of it on my laptop. He still does seem to struggle through it a little bit. Yeah. He takes time to come up with his words, to say what he's going to say, even when it's not confrontational or adversarial whatsoever. It's fawning. Right. And still you can see that he's having a little bit of difficulty with it. Yeah. I mean, it was going to be brutal if he did another debate or more interviews or anything of that nature. Yeah, he's just not up to it.
No, any kind of hard-hitting interview I think would have been very difficult, and that appearance on The View you couldn't really classify as an interview. It's a sort of cozy chat with broadly supportive people, and as you say, he does still seem quite hesitant. And I think one of the things that makes his physical and cognitive condition so politically damaging is, I don't want to seem to be like gloating about it whatsoever. I think it's actually sad because so many people have seen relatives struggle with the cognitive effects of aging, and those effects are so recognizable to so many of us. And so when you see the president, even in that kind of very soft setting, and the movements are rather slow and stiff and deliberate, and the verbalizing is somewhat hesitant, it's just not, it's not great.
Yeah, and it affects everybody differently. Joy pointed out, I don't think we played that clip, that she's actually the same age as Biden, and while I do find her commentary somewhat unhinged and is probably not very popular with people watching, I would not say that she lacks an ability to speak and communicate at all. She's not hampered whatsoever compared to Joe Biden. So it affects you at different ages.
Oh, absolutely. And even in the political realm, Bernie Sanders is, I think, a few months or a year older than Biden. Now, people can love or hate what Bernie Sanders stands for, but I don't think many people, if anyone, really makes the argument that he's in any sense cognitively impaired.
Absolutely. We'll have more Rising right after this.